Welcome to the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. We sit down with passionate leaders in education for their thoughts and insights in today's world. We are excited to have as our guest Dr. Emily Messer, President of Texas Wesleyan University in Fort Worth, Texas.
Well, I always like to start off with your mentors. So if we talk about the path, your path and your journey to the presidency, who are the mentors that really helped shape you?
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, my mom and dad isn't that the, I guess, stereotypical answer, but they definitely molded me into who I am. I am actually a first-generation college student, so getting a 4-year college degree was new and different to my family, but they really motivated me, and really, I didn't even think otherwise. I knew I was going to college after I graduated high school, just didn't know all the details and didn't have the parental support from their experience. But really, my mentors in regards to my career in higher education started when I was an undergraduate student at Jacksonville State University in Alabama, and had many, many mentors that I still talk to frequently. One of those being the dean of students at the time, ended up being a mentor and really good friend. Also, our vice president for student affairs and the university president. And that is actually through my work with him. I was very involved as an undergraduate student. I was in a sorority, an ambassador, tour guide, orientation leader, you name it, I did it, and ended up being Student Government Association president. And during that time, I met regularly with the university president. And that's when I really realized that I wanted to be a university president one day. And so he has been a great mentor of mine. I saw him a couple of weeks ago, and he and the other two individuals I spoke of are looking forward to coming to my inauguration in a few months.
How exciting. So now, obviously, you remember the call that you got when you became the president. What was that moment like?
Oh, goodness. It was, I was in shock, first of all. You go through that process, and the search process for the president at Texas Wesleyan was very quick. It was expedited. So it moved really, really quickly. So I went from a virtual interview to a week later, a campus interview, and a week later, I was offered the position. So it was quite a whirlwind, but it was a shock, and once I made it through that shock, it was surreal to know that I guess 20 something years ago, I made it a goal of mine to be a university president, and that came to fruition.
Well, how great is that? Congratulations. So now what are I know there's many, but if you were to pick a top 2 or top 3 items that you're thinking about every day, what does that look like?
Well, the first one is the students. I serve in higher education, and I currently serve at Texas Wesleyan University for the students there. And that is one appealing factor to me when looking at this university for a leadership role, serving as president, is the type of students that we serve. We serve a very diverse population. Many Pell eligible students, many first in their family to attend college. And so what we do every day is for the students. Every decision I make, every meeting I'm in is for the students of Texas Wesleyan University. So that's at the forefront of everything I think about. And then also just making sure that Texas Wesleyan and our mission is known in our community, to high school students, to high school counselors, principals. They know that we are an excellent avenue for post-secondary education. And, you asked 2 or 3 things. The third one is just making sure that we are serving as one university. That's the faculty, staff, and students to make sure we are moving the university in a forward direction.
Well, and you spoke of diversity, and so this is really a 2-part question related to that. So I've often heard from senior administrators and presidents that without without belonging, diversity and inclusion don't mean a lot. Mm-hmm. So I guess the first question is, how do you make sure that students at Texas Wesleyan feel like they belong? And then second, what a story to tell, the fact that you were first generation, a number of your students are first generation. So can you talk about the excitement and the engagement you have with students and parents to say, hey, you should come to Texas Wesleyan, and hey, by the way, I was like your son or daughter, I was a first generation student.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really a rewarding experience. So to be able to, you were talking about the sense of belonging was the first question. And I think with my previous response to your question, students being at the forefront, we want to make sure that students feel like they belong. And I'll go even further to say to make sure our faculty and staff feel like they belong at our university. That is key to creating a positive culture on a university campus. So making sure students feel like they belong on campus. And we do that through putting students first, being a student-centered university. And a lot of that begins with me as the president and the leader. And so tangibly, what does that mean? That means I'm out meeting with student organizations and I'm out around campus and I've spoken to our Hispanic student organization and our Black Student Alliance and our athletes on campus and just making sure that they feel like they belong. It's very, very important. And then the first generation aspect, I've really enjoyed that when I'm going out and meeting with student organizations, I tell them that, I share that with them because it can be daunting to be the first person in your family to go to college and not know it's complicated. There are some things that are quite complex with FAFSAs and financial aid and the enrollment process, registration process. And so making sure they see that I was in their shoes at one point and hoping that that's creating a sense of belonging in a relational manner.
So let's talk a little bit about career paths. And how do you make sure that students are career ready, especially today, where in 10 years there's going to be jobs that don't exist today, and today there are jobs in place that won't exist. And so, how do you make sure students are career ready?
Mm-hmm. One thing I tell our team and our prospective students. I had a meeting with the deans this week, and I'm focusing on relationship rich and career connected for our students. And so with that, relationships are key to everything you do in life. You have relationships with your family, with your friends, with your employee, with your colleagues, your employers. And so I want to make sure that we are assisting students with building relationships, because then that leads to the career connected. So once they have relationships with their peers and their faculty and their staff and community members, then that can lead to the career connected aspect of what we are wanting to provide for our students. And with that, I think internships are so valuable. I want to make sure that we are providing internships to any and every student that wants them. So, some of our majors require internships, which I think is excellent. We were very fortunate at Texas Wesleyan to just receive a Title III grant where we are going to be focusing on internships for students. So $2.1 million grant where we will be hiring one person that's specifically dedicated to building relationships with our community businesses to provide internships for our students.
So now, when you are working with alumni, how do you engage alumni? Because oftentimes alumni is such a great marketing tool, maybe the best marketing tool.
Yes. Yeah. So we have an outstanding alumni governing board, and they are very involved. We had an event last week where we had football recruits, prospective football players, student athletes, I should say, on campus, and we had alumni there to speak to them. So we engage alumni in almost anything and everything we do. We have alumni panels on campus, specifically during Hispanic Heritage Month. We partner with the Fort Worth Hispanic Chamber, and many of our alumni are members of that. So they came and spoke to really any students, but the Hispanic Student Organization sponsored that. So we definitely involve our alumni, and it goes back to the relationships rich, career connected focus that I have, and that's building relationships with our alumni and them connecting the students to their career path.
So what's the number one question that you get from prospective parents? And then also what's the number one question you get from prospective students? Because I'd imagine they're probably different.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I've only been around a few months, I haven't specifically received those questions. I think in general, parents want to know what we're doing to prepare their student for their career. That's why they're attending college to, I joke with parents, for students to get off their payroll, right? So, so what are we doing to prepare students for the next step, which is their career?
Absolutely. And so, words that I've heard used by a number of institutions is meet students where they are.
Mhm.
And so I know that that can mean providing different learning modalities like residential and online, as well as other ways of meeting, maybe traditional versus non-traditional. What's most convenient for them. But can you talk to me? I mean, how does Texas Wesleyan? How do you meet students where they are in life?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question because we have so many students that are coming to us in a non-traditional format, not always coming directly out of high school. They may have taken some time off or gone into the career field, or they have families that they're taking care of. We have to make sure we're, as you said, meeting the students where they are. And a lot of that is delivery methods, course offerings. So something we're still working on in primarily moving many of our programs online so students have the flexibility to complete a college degree. Other things we're looking at. Traditionally, we are a 4-year liberal arts university, but we're looking at alternative program opportunities, whether it be certificates or micro credentials, so that students can gain those credentials to enter the workforce earlier, or maybe they're already in the workforce and are needing to kind of take a academic degree step by step, so micro credentials. So those are some of the things that we're looking at.
And so I know at Jackson State, you all set enrollment records, very highly esteemed and regarded there. And one of the initiatives that you had was a major gift initiative for roughly $25 million, if I'm correct on that. So that leads to my question. So what makes a successful fundraiser?
A successful fundraiser, the individual?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're looking for, if you're fundraising for an institution,
Yeah.
if you're looking for a gift, and whatever that might be, I mean, that can take you back to really in any various areas of your life. But what does it take if you're asking for money?
Yeah.
What is that? What's the best way of doing that?
Yeah. I don't think it's the ask or the approach or the process. I think it's the story. What's the story you're telling? And specifically at Texas Wesleyan University, the impact we're making on so many students' lives that may not have had a chance to pursue a college education otherwise, especially those first generation college students. Not only are we transforming their lives, we're transforming the lives of their families, their communities, and future generations to come. And I know myself, I've experienced that. So I think it's telling the story, and really, especially where we're located in the city of Fort Worth, very philanthropic community. And once they understand what our mission is at Texas Wesleyan, providing an opportunity for education and empowerment for our students, the story almost sells itself. People are intrigued and want to support what we're doing.
So let's talk a little bit about competition. I mean, many would say in higher education, the market is saturated, some may say, but regardless, there's a lot of competition out there. So I'm just curious. I know that sometimes when you look at competition, you also collaborate with competitors as well in different ways. But how do you address, and are those any, is that a keep you up at night challenge that you have as far as how does Texas Wesleyan compete with all these institutions for a student?
Yes, I think especially being a previous enrollment manager, that's something I'm always thinking of. More so when looking at the demographics and the enrollment cliff that we've been preparing for years, in addition to the competitive marketplace. So I think the key to that is being nimble and innovative in our programmatic offerings and delivery methods, but also having a niche. And I think that Texas Wesleyan, serving a diverse student body and providing something that other institutions may not necessarily provide, is beneficial for us. But yes, it's one of those things that it's a very competitive marketplace. And for a small private university that is tuition driven, it is something that's at the forefront of our minds.
Well, and how do you make sure that students and families understand? We've talked about the accessibility to an extent, but also the affordability. You know, because I do think I think there's an assumption among many that, well, private institution is more expensive than a public institution, period. End of story.
Yeah.
But how do you address that with families?
Yeah, I mean, that's crucial because of the perception that you just mentioned. We specifically at Texas Wesleyan have a very competitive scholarship program, merit scholarship program, that students are awarded scholarships at the time of admission, and our scholarships are for all 4 years. So that's key. When speaking with parents, we want to make sure they know that this is not a bait and switch type program. You don't come in, get the scholarship for 1 year, and then you're on your own. Like, we are there to support the student for all 4 years that they're enrolled. But between our affordable, or I guess almost aggressive merit scholarship program, and then the additional donor supported scholarships we have, it can be a very affordable college education. It really just takes sitting down and explaining that to parents and making sure they understand that the value that they're getting and the return on their investment.
So what was your dissertation on?
It was the college choice process for first generation college students. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah. I mean, and how applicable is that?
Yes.
You know, in your role now?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was specifically focused on a small private university and why the students chose to attend that compared to other institutions.
And is it hard to make sure that the faith-based mission stays in place for on-campus and online students?
Yes. Now, I will say, and this is like most institutions, an online college experience is different than a traditional on-campus residential college experience. But, one thing we pride ourselves on is our smaller, smarter motto. And we want students to experience that whether they're in the classroom or online. And we pride ourselves on that when you call an office, you're going to get a person. You're not going to be put on hold, and you're not going to be next in line for a callback. We're here to support our students, and that's our smaller, smarter mission.
So now, I know you've recently started, but I'll ask the question, where do you see Texas Wesleyan in 10 years?
Yeah, we are on such a forward trajectory. We've experienced growth the past 2 to 3 years, looking like it's going to be a great fall semester, 25% ahead in freshman applications. So I think we will continue to grow, be a staple in the North Texas marketplace for higher education. Fortunately, we are not going to experience the decrease in high school students as much as some other areas of the country. So I think you'll continue to see Texas Wesleyan grow, not only in traditional students, but our non-traditional outlet as well.
So I know there's a doctor in front of your name, but now that you've become president, are you hearing more President Emily Messer or Doctor?
That's a good question. It's a little bit of both. And if people have asked me which one do you prefer, I'm just Emily. I'm just I'm just there to support our students, faculty, and staff. Yep.
Well, we really appreciate your time, President Emily Messer. I'll go ahead and I'll say it that way. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And I'll tell you, I hope this is just the beginning of our conversations, and hopefully you'll do this again when we do maybe a part two a year from now.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that'll give me a little more time under my belt, right? Yeah,
Well, that was great. Thank you so much.
great. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the College Admission TV Presidential Podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll bring you another insightful conversation with a distinguished leader in higher education.